Okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
All right, we're live. We're here, everyone. No one's watching it. We got Anthony.
We got Anthony.
Hello.
You want to shout out your Insta name?
Oh, I don't stay on Insta anymore.
All right. No
So
one.
what old people do?
Old people are.
Old people are on Instagram.
Hey, they're in. You guys
They're
wanna hop on?
You gotta like
There we go.
approve them.
A few. What's up?
You're gonna edit this, right?
Yeah, there they are. Oh, what's up?
And we're on.
We got a special guest.
I'm trying to get in the camera. She has it all on her.
No. Oh wait. Let me
This is how it
right.
needs to be. No, KB. No.
Okay.
This is how it needs to be.
Baby, get upstairs.
That's why people are tuning in. Am I right?
That's right. The
Wow.
end.
It's very,
And the end.
it's kind of fuzzy on you.
Did I hear that, Anthony? You said that high schoolers don't get on Instagram anymore. I can't keep up. What do they get on?
See,
TikTok,
TikTok.
Take that.
Snapchat.
Yeah, I'm on Snapchat. Tony.tiger. You know, just go ahead and
Wow, that's all
I
right.
Still on MySpace, y'all. So you know I'm old.
MySpace.
It's still a
I
thing.
mean, just kidding.
That's how we used to update in our bios on MySpace that we were together. It was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what MySpace is.
He doesn't know what it is.
I mean, I know what it is, but like, I've never it's like an old computer programming.
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
It was when we couldn't really interact with one another, and you had to just pick your favorite song for the week.
Yes.
That's true.
With a picture, because we didn't have camera phones either.
No.
Anthony, what's up, man?
Hello.
It's kind of blurry. I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't really see you all. I know you all are there though. But
It's
like,
not on your end.
It looks good, but we can.
You don't like the
We'll try this.
It might be the internet connection. Can you shut off other things? So Anthony is hanging out with us tonight because his mom's getting surgery. So
Alrighty. Well, we're gonna pray that your mom has quick, speedy recovery, which I'm sure she will.
yes,
Yeah.
he is our teenage son tonight.
Well, let
Yeah.
me know how that goes.
It escalated quickly. It was really strange. We started with 2 little kids and then had a
It
teenager.
escalated quickly.
Yeah, which most things do. All right,
I
that's
hope
good.
y'all have real snacks for Anthony, Jenny.
Well, they
No
got
vegan
Subway. Okay, to be fair, we have frozen pizzas, but then we just have quinoa and carrots.
Oh
What's
my
quinoa?
god.
Exactly.
What's quinoa?
Exactly.
Is that like? Sounds like a papaya. Is it?
It's not a snack.
It's not a papaya.
And it's not.
It's not a snack. Hey, I tried to make Rayshawn some couscous.
Right flank.
My mom makes that stuff.
Gotta get
It's,
Yeah.
it's like small rice.
It's still rice. It's actually a noodle, but it's fine. It doesn't matter.
Small rice.
And it's pretty good, but never mind, you know.
No ma'am.
It's Rayshawn. It's a noodle.
No ma'am. Maybe she cooked it wrong, Jenny. I don't know.
No, I did not.
Oh.
No, I didn't. I cooked it. I put vegetables in there, chicken broth. I made it tasty.
Chicken broth, really? Chicken?
Yeah, I mean, I was.
Wow, I couldn't taste none of that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, moving right along because the Gaines household is trying to be healthy, but we haven't figured that out. So, anyway.
Pray for us. We're trying, guys.
We will.
No judgment.
So, we're back, guys.
Here we are.
And today's topic is we're going to talk about the experience in the Black church versus the experience in the white church or Caucasian church.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got a few questions, and then we're just going to talk about this, that, and the third experiences. And go, Corey.
Take it away.
It's on you.
Oh. I forget. We gotta get my questions because I'm using my phone. So we got.
So the reason that we kind of came up with this idea was, you can get it from there if you want, but was that I was listening to a podcast from Austin Channing Brown, which we had mentioned last time, and she was being interviewed by Brene Brown, which is kind of funny, who is, as white as we are, and they were talking about the the difference in their experience of Black Jesus versus white Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're down here.
it was a very different church experience. And we have, Corey and I do a Bible study with one of our friends from seminary on Wednesday nights, and he is white, but he is gay. So he's in a different, you know, category of minority. And so we were asking him about his experience. And it was obviously different than ours. And I think it's probably even different regionally and according to what, you know, denomination you're involved in, or if you're not, or whatever. But I can only speak to my experience. My experience was that the version of Jesus that I got was, it was a very transactional relationship. So you had to earn affection. You know, I think that what was communicated to me is that you didn't have to, but like the underlying themes were that you very much had to, and it wasn't works-based, but it very much was. Like you had to kind of like read between the lines. And so even as a 32-year-old adult, the idea of like unconditional grace is very difficult because it was something that was communicated but not modeled.
Yes.
And something can be communicated all day long, but if there's not, you know, modeling to back up, it doesn't actually sink in. So it was taught, and white Jesus was taught, you know, in the idea of grace, but it didn't actually play out at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
That was a wow.
Mouthful.
Yes. I didn't even know that. That's something for me to even just take in at the moment. But yeah. So you want to start with our churches, for your church experience?
My church experience. So I will say it was kind of similar to what you were saying, Jenny, as far as, you know, preaching about grace. But in actuality, I never felt like the grace really existed. It was a struggle to believe in unconditional love. It is a struggle, even to this day, to really believe, you know, that God loves me despite anything that I do, to believe in grace. You know, all of that stuff is kind of in my belief system. However, it's a struggle to really embrace, because in the Black tradition, you know, we're taught about grace and stuff like that and forgiveness of sins. However, we're also taught that you have to work at this salvation. You have things to actually do to be saved. Not quite a works-based salvation, but kind of like a works-based salvation. You have things that you must do in order to be saved. And if you don't do these things, then you kind of got to question your salvation, which doesn't feel good.
No.
So the Black church, yeah, I mean, the Black church, of course, is different because, you know, we have like the civil rights movement within the Black church, and historically, the church and civil rights was always connected. So, of course, the Black church experience is different because of racism and how that played a part in how we view God and worship God. It was always out of desperation, and that's probably why we're so emotional as Black people, because of the historical racism that we had to face. And so the church was always a place of solace. It was our identity, you know. For me, I grew up primitive Baptist. Primitive Baptist, we wash feet. That's what that means. You wash feet. I think every fourth Sunday or something like that.
It might mean something more than that. You gotta stop saying that.
No, it does. Like,
oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Back to being serious.
Yeah, primitive. I think they wash feet. How you gonna tell me about my tradition?
I know. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I gotta look that up to make sure.
Yeah, we wash feet. And so basically, they make fun of Baptist people because they say that Baptist people, we drink, smoke, do all this stuff, and we still saved.
That's true too.
Wow,
That's funny.
you're gonna force that stereotype? Lord have mercy. Look at that bias.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So that's interesting. You know, even the Baptist people, I guess they had to preach, you know, pray, fast, do all of these things because they was probably smoking and drinking behind closed doors. So they needed that to make them feel good. But yeah, the Black church preaches grace and all of that. However, it's a struggle to really accept it. We're taught to fast. to pray, and to have the gifts of the Spirit. You know, and I think a lot of that flows out of racism, and we have to like be emotional because that was our only place of acceptance a lot of times. So that has a lot to do with the Black church experience from my perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I grew up non-denominational. So yeah, that means we didn't have a title or a, denomination, just non. So anyways,
Just not.
Just
non.
Even though that is a denomination in and of itself.
It certainly is, isn't
It
it?
certainly is.
Secret Baptist.
Secret
I
Baptist.
think they-
No, we
Y'all
don't.
was pulling from everybody. Like, I want
Yeah.
this, that, and
Yeah.
We do what we want. We don't have any bosses.
Thanks.
Yes.
It's always a rebel. And so, with that being said, I grew up with a more spiritual experience. So for me, grace was all I feel like I'd known, and just having that personal relationship with God and worshiping. And my parents would have like prayer nights, and they would have they would do laying of the hands and prophesying and all of that stuff. So I grew up like that. I also grew up in the era of like Creflo Dollar, and he's just one of the people who came to my mind who brought forth the grace-based message. In the beginning, it was a big issue because people didn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
But my parents were like big followers of that. So for me, I was raised on like grace, and when I worship, it is a experience for me, and having faith and believing that God is going to do what it is that I need for him to do. So my experience wasn't necessarily about you have to do so much work or anything like that. It was about, my father always taught me like, if I can conceive it, then I can achieve it, So I had a very not really that versed on the different denominations. And since being married to Rayshawn, he's like taught me, we've talked about what the different denominations do and all that kind of stuff, because like, not only was I raised a certain way, but they didn't even really talk about the other religions. So I'm just getting acclimated with it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
I'm jealous that you didn't struggle with grace like the rest of us.
I help you.
It's not fair. Which is grace.
Which is grace. Yeah.
So I have a question, and it's not one that I wrote down for you guys, but in more whiter churches, there's lots of different denominations, and there's more like hymns and organs type of churches, and there's more charismatic type of churches. And my exposure to the Black church is not a lot, but what I've seen seems to be all more charismatic and more like high energy worship. Is that like across the board, or are there more like hymn and pew type Black churches as well?
I must say that I think that it's kind of across the board.
Okay.
For the most part, there are some that are like
Yeah, you got some.
Some that are still like traditional hymns and stuff.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they've like jazzed up hymns, and praise team came into effect, and choirs, and it's more of a charismatic.
Yeah.
Full on. People actually, especially in the Black church, one of the number one things they go for is praise and worship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it attracts.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah. And I think that that's interesting what attracts different types of people, right? Like and again, it's different according to every denomination. We have friends on either side of the spectrum who are white that, are more of the holiness tradition to all the way to like, the very like structured, we were at a Presbyterian church, a year and a half ago, which is all about like
the order of worship.
So we've actually really had a gift in ministry. We've been probably in 6 or 7 different denominations.
Yeah.
But KB, my roots are in are in non-denom, because I'm not trying to have people tell me what to do. So, which shouldn't be surprising. And
We'll
here
have
we are
issues
at a
with
church
control.
plant. What?
Huh? Nothing.
What'd you
He said we have issues with control.
So that is a funny segue. Corey, get out of here. That's an interesting segue. So a lot of what the podcast I was listening to was talking about, this white woman comparing her experience to Jesus with this black woman, and the white woman was talking a lot about how the Jesus she experienced was a lot about power and control.
Wow.
Which is something that Corey and I have been doing in our Wednesday night Bible study with our friend for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks at this point. It's a theme that keeps coming up, is power and control, keeping people almost under the feet of Jesus and keeping them in line and keeping them in order, submission. So Rayshawn, do you feel like that is, you said you experienced some of those similar things. Is that something growing up, like were those some of the messages about Jesus that like that was his role to keep you in line?
Oh yeah. Yes. I would say looking back on my church experience, even to this day, a lot of people suffer from church hurt. And they would basically say it has to do with, the church manipulating or controlling them in their vulnerable state. So yes, the Black church has suffered from the abuse of people, taking their power and abusing it as spiritual leaders. So from that angle, yes, that control piece, I would say, Jenny, that's probably a struggle in every religion, though. Like if you're a spiritual leader in every religion, it's very tempting to just, have that control piece and manipulating people. I think that's for every religion. Christianity is not exempt. The Black experience is not exempt. The Black church struggles with spiritual leaders manipulating and controlling the sheep, the people in the pews. That is a huge thing. Church hurt is a huge thing. So from that angle, yes, we experienced that. And I mean, you can justify it biblically. I mean, I've seen some scholars look at the Bible and say that the whole thing is rigged. So even without a spiritual leader interpreting the scriptures for you, scholars have said that in the scriptures themselves, especially Christianity, the New Testament, you have Paul telling women to keep silent in the church. And you have Paul saying different things about slaves. Don't try to seek your freedom, submit to the government, so even in the scriptures themselves, you can find, if you're looking for it, you can find, power and control. So it depends on what you're looking for too, because you can find whatever you're looking for in the Bible. So this thing is deep. This whole control thing is a big thing, and I think in every religion, the Black experience is not exempt.
It's interesting though. You talked about how in the Black church you find community and you find a safe space, and I think the white church in the North, at least, and where I grew up, we lost that. Like there's church numbers are going down like crazy because people are finding their community other places.
Because church has made, though, at least the white church in our experience has made a name for themselves, and it's not endearing. And it's earned it, so it makes a lot of sense to us why people have gone, and even us have gone to, different avenues, because it isn't, you guys talk about this experience of this respite and this safe place. I'm not sure.
And I think we talked about it in youth group, like as in a sense of like, this is a safe place to share or to talk about things, but not safe in the sense of like, I can be myself here.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, Corey. Because I know some white churches. Man. I'm not even going to name them, but I know a few within the city that are very multicultural, and they have cell groups or life groups, and they get very vulnerable within those groups. And Rob Parsley's church, everybody know Rob Parsley. His church is awesome. and they got the gift of the Spirit going. They have all of that. So I think we can find, certain white churches who are doing it the somewhat black way, if you will. And you can find black churches who are doing it somewhat the white way. So, I guess I would say that I think people are looking for authenticity when they come to church. White or black, they're looking for authenticity. They're looking for God to accept them and people to accept them wherever they are. A lot of limitations that we put on people and on church, it makes the church to die. Right? It makes the church to die because it's so many restrictions and people don't feel free enough to keep coming, let alone join. So whether it's the white church or the black church, churches are dying, period, not just the white church. Right.
That's factual. And I think it has a lot to do with the generation change too.
Yeah. Right.
Because the generation, both black and white, we're looking for something else. We're not necessarily looking for all these rules and regulations. Yes. I think that we're looking for something that's transparent and an experience, something that we haven't already seen, because you already have, spirituality and, rocks and chakras and this and that and this and that. I go on and on, It's a lot of other things and people who have businesses to clear your air and all of that stuff. So it's kind of like, what is the church going to bring? It has to bring a real experience. And so, because everybody's running from themselves ultimately, meaning as you are tired of yourself, you're going through something and you come to church because you want to experience, God. You want to experience God. And it's like, when you don't get that, now you're kind of disappointed. And now you feel like, well, I can just read a self-help book or something. And I'm going to just go to brunch on Sundays and forget church. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And I think it goes both ways. It's some things that I think the black and the white church share, meaning as that we can change and get better in, and then there's other things that I think that we can take from each other, I mean, I've heard like black worship leaders, including myself, there are certain white worship leaders that I'm just like, wow, like it's such a purity in that, like
For real.
I want that, so it's some things that I feel like once,
we can learn from each other.
But I'll just end it there. That we can learn from each other and create this like super dope experience. But it's some weird barrier. I don't know what the pink elephant in the room is, but it's something that keeps us from
when we did worship with you guys, it opened me up to new ways of doing things, because I'm used to doing worship the same way all the time, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus,
done.
Let's move on. And
we remember, Corey.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's like a freeness in the way you guys do worship, and it frustrates tech people because they have to go between slides, but that's, who cares? Like, that's not the point. And we don't have that in the churches that I have been to.
At least speaking from our experiences, that was not.
There's more structure that is needed for whatever
It's
reason.
Control and discomfort. That's what it is. It's anything spiritual. It's human. It's just, well, we were supposed to end on that verse. Well, so you don't. It's just, so you don't.
Right.
So, Jenny, would you say it's like a generational thing? Like older people would be more prone to the control and let's do it the old school way versus this generation wants something else. Is it generational? Is it a race thing? Is it a preference? Like some people are just not really into music too. Anyway, so
I would say in our experience, it is generational and it is white.
Okay.
I, again, just speaking from our experience. Our older white friends have difficulty with flexibility within the church service in general, maybe, and also within the church service. And I think that Corey and I recognized that difficulty with flexibility inherently, and then we're like, this isn't right, and like we figured it out. But I also feel like we were working on that for a long time, and I think that where we're at in our faith, like the things that feel like a very big deal to other people, we just can't make sense of it.
Right.
Like we just the things that I care about in relation to like the dogma of our faith. We were just talking about this last night. It's just very small.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of like all of the things we can actually digest and experience. We've been talking about this word experience. Experience isn't something that we have a lot in the white church in our experience. It's not something, we don't go to church experiencing things. We hear a lot of teaching, which is not wrong. It's just different. But if there's inflexibility associated with either side, that's where you get stuck, right? So I would say it is white and generational. Is that fair?
Yes.
I've been to some charismatic white churches that are able to do worship more freely. I think that our experience in the white church is more restrictive.
Yeah.
I think, but it's cultural, so maybe not white and black cultural, but just like church cultural and generational for sure.
Yeah. Like there's a legitimate fear. Like you can't let, not legitimate fear. There's a real fear. You can't let a song go on too long because what if the sermon has to get cut short? Like there's a Browns game on.
I had an elder church person tell me, these songs go on too long. I need to sit down. And the pastor said, sit down.
Right.
Don't
just like
it's
problem
okay.
solved.
Like don't hurt your knees. Like just sit down.
Just sit down.
But that's the idea of it. It's almost like church is a tradition, and so it has to be something that's checked off the list rather than something that's experienced. And so that's how we've seen it show up a lot in our culture. Is just it's Sunday, so you have to go to church.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I wonder if that has to do with like privilege, meaning, as white people, your historical experience hasn't been desperation in the midst of a society in the first place.
No.
So church was never, I'm assuming this, I'm trying to interpret, the white experience. I don't even know if I'm right, but from my interpretation, maybe it has to do with, you weren't the recipient of racism or anything like that. So you didn't have to go to church, out of desperation for God and for help and for solace. Maybe, I don't know. I know for blacks, that's what it was. I mean, historically speaking, the church and civil rights was married.
Yeah.
It was married. God was interested in the oppressed. God was interested in delivering people, who were under subjection. And so blacks ran to church to not only worship God, but out of a sense of community, out of a sense of we don't belong out there in the world. And so church meant everything for the black community back in the day. And so I think it's trickled down to each generation. And so that's why I think we're so expressive, in the worship.
No, that's that I would say that is a completely fair assessment. Church and again, we're just making generalizations here. So there are plenty of churches and there are plenty of people who haven't had this, white people even, who haven't had the same experiences, but like it became a country club, right? Like it became a social event and not a desperation thing. We were not in a situation where we were in a desperate circumstance. We were in charge and calling all of the shots. And if you look at, the political ties historically with, leaders in the church and those making decisions in the community that were white, it doesn't look good for us. And again, we talked about this last week, like it's not everything that's going on, that's been going on, it's not new, but that's going on right now in America it doesn't discredit any white trauma, but yet like there are plenty of people that are white and that have experienced trauma and end up at church and do find solace in it. But like as a race, as an ethnicity, as like a grouping of people, we have not needed the desperation of church.
No.
We've not. And it's
Wow.
missing. Like you feel that
Right.
sense of it.
Not as a culture, maybe individually for people
Exactly.
seeking hope.
But not as a group of people being oppressed.
Right.
Not.
Mhm.
It's not something that is part of our makeup, which is so interesting because of the history associated with like coming to America for white people, which is very different from Black people because you guys were forced here.
Yep.
But for us, we were coming to escape oppression.
Ooh,
and
that's
like,
good.
and these leaders in
That's right.
this, this spiritual community of no, we won't stand for this anymore. So like there was like this really small period we got right for like 3 days, and then we did everything wrong. But like,
Right.
like that was it, right? So like our response was like, this isn't right. We have to do something differently, and then we still chose
Right.
poorly. But no, every time it's come back to, we are still in charge. We do this. This is the thing we do on Sunday. How do we get this done quickly so we can go about our lives?
Yeah. It sounds like the experience of those in the Black church, even, generations ago, it more closely aligns with the first church. Like
Yeah.
being a minority,
Yes.
being persecuted,
Oppressed.
and needing somewhere to find hope in
Yeah.
Jesus. That was the first.
That's the gospel.
That's the
Yeah.
disciples, like
Yeah.
being persecuted by the Romans, needing, being killed for their faith, needing somewhere to go. And that's the early church. So the Black church is so much more closely aligned in that sense with the early church.
Wow.
Yes, that's a good correlation. That's not something that we have experienced at all.
That's a deep revelation, actually,
It really is.
Corey, because there was a Black theologian. His name is James Cone. He actually died recently.
Oh.
James Cone wrote a book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. And he was making connections between when Jesus died on the cross and Blacks dying on a lynching tree.
Wow.
Right.
And how Christ was found in that intersection. So he was saying that Jesus is for the oppressed. He is surely for the Black people who are being lynched. He's surely for the Black race because they were the most oppressed people at one point in time. And so that Black theologian made that connection between the suffering of Christ and the suffering of Blacks. He put that thing together.
Wow.
It's called Black theology. That's what Black theology is about.
Wow.
Right.
And to your point, Corey, it's something about suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It can cause every one of us to get closer to God because it breaks us. It breaks our egos, our expectations, our hopes. And I think that God lets it happen so we can figure out who we are and how, we're created to be in his image and to seek God, to be chasing after God. And it takes trials, it takes life, I think, to get every person there. So
Right.
I don't think you got to be Black or to be oppressed to be desperate after God. But in a weird sense, I guess it helps, right?
Well, it helps when when it's a collective thing. And again, we all come with our own traumas, and that's not, the Black experience doesn't invalidate anyone else's experience,
Right.
it's your culture is collective trauma.
Right.
We were talking about like the collective trauma we've experienced being alive is 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
Columbine,
All right.
acts of violence, but like that didn't drive us to church. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like systemic, and it wasn't like a personal attack on white people. It was just Americans.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's no comparison. And so I think that's, what you guys have made out of centuries of being drawn to God and running literally to God. That's not been something that the white church can say we've experienced. It's been part of our agenda and part of our social construct rather than out of deep desperation as a culture, at least.
Yeah. I mean, just the way we call on God and all that stuff, like it just makes me think about, the Israelites, how they were asking to be delivered, from Pharaoh for years and years and years. And then you speed it up to Blacks in slavery asking to be delivered for years and years and years, you know? And so it's just like generation to generation. When you go to church, you know, whatever you have, I mean, our songs, you know, laying our burdens down and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And when you sing and when you preach, it should be from your heart. It has to, you know, and we be in church all day long. Now I know now it's like, dang, like 5 hours later, but seriously, you know, it's such a difference because when you were saying, like, you know, I've been to 3 white churches and that was like a 30-minute church, you know, I'm like, wow, like this is fast. And, you know, we're in church. I mean, minimum to me, a good church service is 2 hours, you know?
Yeah.
We started 11 months, we done by 1, cool. Because we didn't sing, you know, the word was good. We are giving our tithes and offerings, you know, maybe a little fellowship at the end. That's a good service for me. If it's 2 hours, great. And I think that for Black people, period, 2 hours is good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey, yeah, because she kind of loud and my son are asleep.
Oh, your kids are
White
asleep?
noise is on.
No, Miles is still over there acting.
Same thing. Do the same thing last week.
Shame on him.
Worms in the basement.
Anthony, I'm not trying to call you out, but like,
Hey,
Do you have anything to say? Like,
not really. I'm just listening, trying to absorb what's being said, trying to just learn.
Soak it up, huh?
I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple of questions I could ask you, but you know,
you
I don't wanna
should.
throw it at you like that.
No.
You can ask me.
Well, I mean, for those who don't know, like, you know, you're white and Black, right?
Yeah.
So, do you feel like, do you identify what do you feel like you get both sides, or do you feel like torn between both sides? It's like a question, you know, like when it comes to just everything, because you would be in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely see where both sides are coming from. I want to say I would identify with one side more than another. But I definitely understand both sides and see where both sides are coming from. Mm-hmm. Whether it's about like things that are going on now, like I understand what's like the wrong part, but at the same time I understand the part that is not wrong.
That's cool.
What's the wrong part?
Singling out the Black people that aren't doing bad things.
Yeah.
Like those people are just like walking down the street, or people that are like with shopping, or but at the same time, like the people that are doing wrong, like the Black people that are robbing places and stuff, like definitely serve them justice, but don't go out of your way to like do them harm. Like do justice, but don't give them extra punishment just because the color of their skin.
Yeah.
So what's like your church experience? Like as just being like a teenager, I mean, that's where we all met. Like for you, what do you feel like you would want to go to church and experience, or, you know, just have that would make you feel like I want to go to church? Like I can't wait.
Don't feel pressured that your youth pastor.
It's cool. They're not gonna do anything.
No judgment. No judgment.
I've been to like 6 different churches, like since my mom started going. And like a lot of different types of churches too. But something I would like to see out of churches would be I don't even know. Probably definitely would have to be like the age group thing, because like with like the service and stuff, like I feel like it appeals to like the older people.
Yeah.
But there are like how you guys do it, like there's like kid time where like they can like go and like learn little lessons, but there could be like a little in between thing, like how youth group is, but like maybe like a smaller thing on Sunday.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't appeal necessarily to teenagers. Yeah. So it's almost like we've got the old people and we've got the kids.
Yeah.
But not the teenagers.
There's nothing for you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
No, I would say that he said that through his eyes, church, it kind of leaves out his age group, and I would think so. Like it's focused on children's church, and then you have the adults. But for a lot of churches, I think your age group is left out, and you guys have a lot of questions, you know, and a lot of things that you're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
I get that.
What they did for us when I was in your age was just make us serve. So like, give them the collection plates, give them a guitar.
Here,
you
can do it.
Make you do stuff in the church rather than let you be part of it.
Experience it.
Yeah.
I know in the black church, you're going to serve cleaning toilets. You're going to serve in every ministry. You're going to be a Harvard bearer.
You better be careful.
What?
I'm just saying.
Am I right? Am I lying? You got to clean toilets. They want you to do verse, and you got to serve your pastor for about 35 years so you be able to even preach one sentence. Now, I'm being mischievous, but, you know, I'm kind of serious. But,
it's true, but still.
What, babe? I can speak freely.
You need a podcast. Somebody gonna
Black
get you.
people, black people better get free. The black church better get free. Because here's what I'm going to say. And then I'm done. I'm dropping the mic. It's nothing like an experience, Anthony, with God, with anything. So they say that if you want to change people or change people's perception about something, you have to change their experience. So when you're talking about God, you have to have an experience with God. And the black church, I know some black preachers, Corey and Anthony, who has never went to theology school. They have never officially studied, but they've had an experience with God, and they can out-preach me any day. I've gone for 4 years to study God and theology. I don't have nothing on these old school black preachers because they had an experience with who God is. And so an experience should stabilize anybody who's looking for God. When you have an experience with God, it stabilizes you. When you have an experience with anything, can I say this? Yeah.
I don't know.
No kids watching this, right?
No, kids watching it.
Okay, if you have an experience with drugs or weed, okay, you'll be hooked. When you have an experience with sex, you hooked. So it's the same thing with God. Once we get hooked on God through an experience, then our life will change. So I think everybody's looking for an experience. It should be with God, but some people look for experiences with drugs through loneliness and through rejection. And so I think the inner turmoil that we experience, it should push us towards God, but we seek so many different things to fill these voids. And I think this experience, it should be based in God and not be based in this rat race of everything else that doesn't fulfill us. Because nothing else is really going to do it.
Right,
but
because it ends up being empty. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Rayshawn, is that
It's a therapist.
Anthony, shut up. I paid a lot of money to learn how to do
that.
Jenny.
How much?
Thank you. Thank you. What I'm hearing you say is that Anthony should be part of our Sunday morning services and speak to the teenagers in our church.
Yeah.
And clean some toilets.
Absolutely, Jenny. That's crazy that you would say that, because when he got done talking, I was going to say that I think that his age group, which would be, Anthony, how old are you? 17?
15.
18, 16?
He's only 15.
Whoa. God.
15?
All that facial hair, man.
He's a baby. Yep.
You've been eating your Wheaties. Well, I think like that whole, 14 to 18, that part of youth should serve in church. Now, if they're gonna clean bathrooms or whatever they're gonna do, because as like he's talking, just make sure that they learn it while they're cleaning. Like you're trying to teach them something. Right. It shouldn't be like just go clean it. Like make sure you're teaching. Yeah. But I think like if they want to learn how to play an instrument or usher, it could lead to even if somebody has a gift for giving sermons, anything that's cultivated young grows up to be great.
Yeah.
And you have the advantage. So I do think, and for me, it's vital to pour into that particular age group because they're sponges, and it will make them so much further, and certain things they could skip, don't get me wrong. When you're young, you're going to go through some stuff. Like you're going to experience some things. You're going to touch that stove, even though we told you it's hot. However, some things can be, shaved off too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. So I agree with you, Jenny, what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, let's change gears just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the suburban white church, there is this problem where to feel like we're doing the work of the Lord, we go to urban areas and do a VBS. We build a church or do some kind of mission work to feel better about ourselves, and then we go back to the suburban home.
This is true.
And we call that poverty tourism in this house, where it's an excuse to go and feel good about yourself, but make no real change in the community.
I like that.
Well, thank you. I didn't make it up. We can't take credit for it.
I thought you did.
I thought you did. That's why you started.
I could have taken credit. So it's a really gross thing, and
It is gross.
to fight that in youth group, we go back to the same community in Cleveland. It's a school that we work at every month. We go back to the same place to have a presence in the community, to build
a relationship.
Yes, to build relationships, to not just to pat ourselves on the back, but like to connect with the community and make a difference.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, what kind of stuff in the Black church do they do for missions? Because it's gross, but white people usually go to the urban church to do the work. So where does the Black church go to do the work?
The homeless.
Okay.
Homeless shelters. Homeless shelters. We always do when the kids go back to school, make sure that they have all their school supplies.
Yeah.
VBS is a big thing in the Black church, so that's definitely going down every summer and take the kids. What else would be a part of the Black church experience? You have
As far as missions. The good news is that a lot of Black churches are already in the hood, in the ghetto.
Already.
So we are
already.
That's
we
true.
already there.
You're doing the work in the community.
Yeah,
Like it's community work.
The ones who should. I do remember that back in the day, like when my father first started feeding the homeless, it wasn't a lot of churches doing that actually. So that was interesting when my mom tells me about that. So, but now within the past, 15 years, like that's like been a big thing. Like most churches, especially Black churches, has it where they're feeding the communities, reaching out for kids and bringing the kids in, getting them in different youth programs, and just keeping them busy and teaching them the word. So yeah, I guess we're already there. Now, the one thing that I can say that the white church pushes more than the Black church is going overseas and doing missions.
Right.
But on the contrary, I'm sure you'll have some people saying, well, you don't necessarily have to go overseas when you can really get your community, wherever you live together first. I think that maybe I personally think that more Black churches should organize missions overseas too. At least one a year, if nothing else. If it's a smaller church or whatever, at least organize one. I don't necessarily see that a lot, so I will give that to the white church. You guys kind of got that, but kind of don't come to the more impoverished areas.
I don't know if you should give us credit for that.
Don't.
Don't. He said no.
I say that because
hit me on.
Okay. Corey wanted to talk about this tonight, and I didn't want to talk about it because I still feel really gross about it. Listen,
it's happening.
I'm on.
Miles, just watch Daniel Tiger. Okay, so missions was like foundational in my non-denominational church. Like all of us, lovely white people together, in our very suburban setting, we're going to save all of the people. Okay, so like my first missions trip I went on, I was 12, which my first international missions trip I was 13, and in 14 I went to Taiwan, which that's a little far.
That's really far.
Taiwan. Does your mom let you go to Mayfield? I mean, like, so that's a separate conversation. But my first mission trip, I've been on like 9 official church mission trips where we did the fundraising, we did all the things. So my first one was to Cleveland. I don't know where in Cleveland, but it was to Cleveland. So we did all of the things. We did the VBS, we did the feeding of the homeless, we did all of these things. We came back, did like a PowerPoint presentation for all of our white people about, look at what all of us did together for this week for all of these. And it wasn't just, you know, we weren't just ministering to the black community. We were also just the poor. This is really, it is about the black community, but it was also just about the poor, you know.
Well, the poor is a code word for the black community.
Could be. So we would do these PowerPoint presentations, and then we would get all of this lovely feedback about, look at what you've done. Look at how you've changed the world in this week going into Cleveland. So that's interesting. That is, again, in our experience in our churches, maybe not every white person's experience, is that you go and you make this change. You never see those people again. You don't have like foundational relationships, which we know is what real change is about. Right. You don't have these foundational relationships. You just like give up a week of your summer and
you get to absolve some of your white guilt.
Yes, because you've made these connections. So I've been, and it's not even just like the local black community. I've been to Taiwan. I've been to like the mountains of Mexico. I've been to Japan. We got engaged on a mission trip in Lithuania. Like, we are as evangelical. We were as evangelical as you could get. We got engaged on a mission trip. So we did all these things, and the problem was like we never knew about the culture. So we didn't know about Lithuanian culture. I think we had like a 1-day like, you know, orientation. So I think that like when we reflect on it, we actually ended up probably doing some damage because we didn't do the homework, and we just took the position of being like the white saviors of the area to come in again for a week or for 10 days. And there's a lot of guilt when we look back on it about like how we did short-term missions really wrong, and how, again, we didn't set up any communities for long-term sustainability. It was just like, look at what we did. Look at what a bunch of our youth group kids did and how we raised money and how we made ourselves feel really good for like 10 days and got to travel. I mean, you guys, like we would get like stipends for, what are they called? Souvenirs.
As part of the package.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would have shopping days.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So,
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're talking about black missions versus white missions, like
the huge difference.
It would be a huge difference, and it wouldn't be no stipends, and it wouldn't be any of that. Like we would have to have researched it.
We don't do all
know
that.
where we're going, who's going, how we're doing it. We probably had to pay all this money to get it done. Yeah. Wow.
So you were impacting your local community, and you're changing lives at home where it needed it.
Right.
And we were going somewhere else for a week, never seeing those people again, and